Mm, Awesome. We're live. Fantastic. Okay, so let me switch my view just in case people come up on the comments this morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jillian. I'm the Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Strategies for CEO Consulting Group, and I'm here with Heather McElrath, owner of Sandbox Communications, and it is Marketing Monday. Happy Monday. How are you doing today?
It's been a hard flu. That's all I got. But I'm getting back to normal. So thank you for asking. I appreciate it. I'll get there. Not quite
Awesome.
100% yet.
Well, we missed you last week. I did some improvising and stretched it to 19 minutes. So I'm glad you're here today.
Well, glad
Welcome
to be
back.
back. Good to see you in here.
So today what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about why your marketing should make people feel seen and heard, and a couple of businesses or bigger brands that do this really, really well, and kind of talk about cultivation of your audience and what that looks like for 2025. And so, first and foremost, I think we should talk a little bit about the messaging that people put forward. I can't tell you how many times I've seen either social posts or flyers or information pieces that lack the detail. And it's like people don't know what they should put on flyers, they don't know what they should put in information. And so, as a general rule of thumb, no matter what industry you're in, you should always be able to answer the who, what, where, when, why, and how of whatever it is that you're advertising. So whether it's a program or a promotion, or maybe it's a new product or service, or if you're talking about an event or anything, nonprofit, for it does not matter who you are. You cannot reach your audience if you can't clearly, at the very basics, communicate. That's going to be the number one thing. Heather, what do you think about that? Do you have any experience seeing people's messaging and then going, oh, do you know what you do?
No, and I love it. But one of the things that, in fact, I just read it the other day, and I loved how simple it was. You don't sell your product, sell this like the service or what you're offering to fix because you're trying to
Right,
help
your
them.
solution.
Yeah, your solution.
Yeah,
It's not about the product. It's about how are you going to make people's lives easier? How are you going to make them
right,
more money? How is it going to impact them, the bottom line? So your product per se doesn't necessarily matter. We were talking earlier about Nike. Nike isn't selling a tennis shoe. They're selling people being athletes and how to be an
yeah.
athlete. That is what they're
Mhm.
selling.
Right. That's like such a great point because marketing is not about selling at all. It is about making people feel seen and heard. It's about making them feel understood and helping them see that they can do whatever it is their hearts desire.
Yep.
So if your product or service that you offer is a solution to their pain point, you're going to have a deeper, more instantaneous connection than if you don't understand your client or your potential customers pain points and what they need and what they're looking for based off of your business. So I want to talk a little bit about Dove and I want to talk about Nike for a minute because both of these brands do this really well. And I'm sure that a lot of our followers at least can identify with the Dove commercials.
Yeah.
The inclusivity, making sure women feel seen and heard and valued and treasured, that it doesn't matter what their body type is. It doesn't matter what their skin looks like. It doesn't matter what their hair looks like. It doesn't matter if they're completely dressed in makeup or completely natural. They are still saying that no matter who you are worthy of love and belonging. And also, we have soap that will make you feel really good. And the funny thing is it works. It works.
Yeah.
And you think about like the just kind of like I talk to people sometimes and they're like, well, we're not curing cancer. And I'm like, yeah, but whatever your solution is to that client might feel a lot like curing a major life problem for them. Maybe it's an emotional connection they have to this problem. Maybe your solution that you offer provides them peace of mind, and that season of their life they do anything to have that peace of mind, or whatever else it could possibly be. But Dove does a really, really good job of championing beauty. Does a really good job of being like, you can be real, you can be non-filtered and natural, no matter what your skin tone, no matter what your age or your body type. And it's not even that it's a marketing strategy as much as it's a statement. Like, what they did was they created a movement around their brand. They created a way to get people to buy in to them on a deeper level, knowing that Dove can be for anyone, but they choose to focus on women, and they also choose to focus on kids. And so it's really interesting when you see how they go about their advertising processes, because what they do is they want to make sure that women see themselves in the messaging and that they feel empowered by what they are receiving, and then by the product. And that's what creates brand loyalty. Now, Nike, you brought up Nike, so let's talk about Nike for a second. The fun thing about Nike, I think, is when they first came up with the Just Do It slogan, the idea behind it was just do what?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, that's the thing, is literally anything. Do anything besides sitting on your couch.
Yeah.
Do anything aside from thinking about it. Go do it, right? Like, that was their whole push, was like, you're never going to be what you want to be if you don't create the space for it. And you're right. They're not just selling tennis shoes.
Yeah, they're selling
It's a
an
deep
ideal.
message.
But I think,
Hmm.
one of the things that I think is really important is that one of the things that we're kind of not specifically talking about is these are business decisions, not necessarily marketing. And I want to
Yeah,
point that out because it's about who you want to be as a business. Who do you,
right.
and that's an important part of how you're marketing. And you talk about, the who, what, when, where, and why of your business.
Mhm.
I really think that's an important concept. Why are you here? Okay, so you lost your job, you had to start a business, but what's next? Because if that's what you're tapping into, that's not going to give you that feel. You're not going to tap into people. So are you in business because you want to make people's lives easier, or you want to make them happier, or, you know, or more beautiful?
Right.
Even let's look at a home remodeling business that is
Hmm.
about making your home more comfortable, where you can have
Yeah.
more family dinners easier, where, there's more space for love. Those are the stories that you're really trying to sell. It is not necessarily
Hmm.
that you're selling a quartz countertop or, a better refrigerator. It's the story of
Right.
the meal.
Right. And that's so good, because I think that no matter how we address the AI explosion that has happened in the last couple of years, you still have a responsibility to humanize it for your
Oh yeah.
audience, which is really interesting, because that then makes you have to become even more self-aware of not just who you are as the owner of your company, but who is your business? And can you identify this clearly and concisely? I think that a lot of times in our businesses, we get so focused on the product. Like, we're
Yeah.
just like, here's my product, buy my product. You want my product? Buy my product. Look, product, buy it. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, why don't we have any sales? And it's like, well, everybody sells hand lotion. Who doesn't
Yeah.
sell a hand lotion? What makes you different? What sets you apart? What is your value proposition? And what solution are you providing? Are you advertising to the right people, or are you advertising to everyone? I don't care what your business is, it's not for everyone, period.
Yeah, no, I think that is a critical thing. It's like in
Hmm.
PR, there's a concept called spray and pray. And that is essentially
Hmm.
where you spray a press release and pray that someone picks up on it. And it's the same concept in marketing. You can't spray and pray in marketing. You have to know who you are talking to. What are you trying to get them to buy and or do or be? How can you do that?
Right. Right. Absolutely. I love that. Now, if we're, sitting in these kind of examples and going, well, I've been promoting my services or products. I don't really feel like my audience is connecting, or you're on social and you're having a hard time seeing the return on investment for your energy. I want to challenge anyone who's watching, whether you're watching live with us or in the comments. Why don't you tell us one way your brand makes people feel seen in the comments?
Oh, I
Because
love
this
that.
is really an interesting self-reflection. As I know, like Tina does this really well, and she has, we call them surprise and delight. So it's like anything that we could do to go above and beyond to make our membership base feel seen and heard, because we genuinely care that they're connected. We genuinely want to see them scale and grow their businesses. We genuinely want to help them get whatever clarity they need that's keeping them stuck so that they can get unstuck. Because the whole point of our programs and our community is to help support like-minded women business owners in the how-to of growing and scaling their businesses. And so our messaging and everything that we do is wrapped around how do we make our women in our community feel seen and heard and valued? What are we doing or not doing in this season of our business that we could be doing more of or starting to do in order to connect deeper with our audiences? And the very high level, the very top of this is just getting your content messaging figured out, mapping it out and understanding who is your ideal customer avatar. What is the pain point or pain points that you solve for this ideal customer avatar? And how do you help speak directly to their needs and desires? How do you help them connect into your brand in a way that makes them go, I'm just diehard. I am a forever fan. I'm a raving review, subscribe, 5 stars, all the things that could possibly be positive with someone giving you some buy-in. So I'm just curious if anybody's watching us live and again in the after, what is one way that your brand makes your audience feel seen? What sets you apart in a really like meaningful way? Now, one of the things that I think is really interesting in the messaging conversation is just the kind of understanding around inclusive language and imagery. Um, a lot of our audiences are relatively diverse, especially because of the nature of where we live with the DNB area, and having your customer base is just naturally diverse because of the transient area of the DNB. Now, my thought is what is it about your brand, if you were to assess it, that provides an inclusive, diverse but inclusive messaging to make them feel like they belong, make them feel like they're home with your brand or that they're connected with it. With your company, with Sandbox Communications, what is one way that you bridge the gap to help make sure that it doesn't matter if you understand SEO or not, you can still have the same results? How do you write that inclusive language into your messaging?
I really focus on approachability and education. And that's primarily because I don't ever want to talk down to someone. I want to talk with someone and help them solve their problems of how am I going to get more people to my site, that kind of thing. So for me, it
Right.
really is about, how did we connect as kids? I realize that part of this is idealistic and maybe a bit simplistic, but it's one of the reasons it's called Sandbox. As kids, we're less, I feel like we're more open to ideas and more open to creativity and the things around us. And so for me, it is a part of who I am, of where am I going to learn from? Who am I going to learn from? How am I going to share what I learned with others in a way that is not talking down? It is about exchanging information.
Yeah, I think that's so good because a lot of times in conversation, people feel like the goal of conversation is to agree, but it's not. The goal is to understand. So agreement could be the cause and effect, or understanding, agreement can be a cause and effect of their understanding. But if you're talking to someone or someone's your audience, and you're missing the mark and they're not connecting with your brand, they don't understand it. Ambiguity detracts buying power 100% of the time. So if you're not clear on your messaging, I'm telling you, your audience isn't either. Even if you have proof of concept, it means that you are missing opportunity. And so I want to talk a little bit about, for the next few minutes, I want to talk about a framework for this. For a customer focused, inclusive marketing message, let's talk about creating a framework. And so for me, when I do this, my thought process is like, I want to identify the audience, I want to speak to their desires, their struggles, and then I want to showcase the stories that make it connect. So that's like where my brain is going from. So if you're in that first section, and I'm going to ask you these questions because I feel like it's good to have real life examples. So if you're going to identify your audience, who are you speaking to? The question, or why it matters is you want to make sure that you're connecting with everyone, and understanding everyone who is supposed to be a part of your brand, and understanding your audience in a way that allows them to resonate deeply and connect with you want to connect with your customer persona, which means you have to understand age, struggles, dreams, values, what they want from you. Like you have to understand your person. Why we call it an avatar. You got to understand who your audience is. And for example, with us, we run a woman-owned membership organization, and so our audience is specifically women between usually about 30 to 64 is like our 10 to be like right around there. 30 being really low, but 35 to 45 being an average for us. So when we think about messaging to our audience, we want to know who we're speaking to. So for you, Heather, tell us who do you identify as your audience for your organization?
Um, sorry. Definitely small businesses. And for me, their pain points are how do I get more eyes on my site? How am I going to drive more traffic? So I have to listen to what they're selling so that we can tap into that as well. So
Right.
for me, it really is about a small business owner doesn't have to be brick and mortar, can be, like myself, a work from home type business, typically less than 20 people in it. Age is not necessarily as important,
Mhm.
but I do have to understand their age from a concept of this is younger folks tend to understand technology better than older folks. It is not necessarily always the case. There are,
Right.
differences, but for me, when it comes to SEO, I do have to be able to talk to people about technology and how. So when I'm looking, when I'm having a conversation with them, I have to understand or be able to tap into, are they getting what I'm saying? And if they're not, how do I adjust my message so that they do? Is that
That's a great point. Yeah, that's awesome. So Heather just spoke to both one and two. So identifying your audience and then speaking to their struggles and desires. That's what she's sharing with you right now. So it matters because when you try to speak to everyone, you miss the mark. You've got to get clear on who you're speaking to. And she very much knows her client base very well. You can hear how she speaks about her client base, understanding what is and is not important within her customer avatar is a part of understanding your persona of your organization, of your business. So it's a really important part. You should know what your people like and don't like, at least at a bare minimum, like a little bit, because chances are they have similar likes and dislikes, similar desires, similar goals as you as a business owner, because you found a need in the market. So you created a solution. That's what your business is. And so this here speaks to that. And then that third piece to this framework is showcasing, relatable stories and making it personal. It matters. It matters that people can connect. This is why people like Heather have businesses wrapped around helping you get reviews and stuff like that, because all of this stuff, it seems like, oh, well, I have 3 reviews, no one's ever gonna whatever. But the reality is that one review could be the difference between someone's buying decision, because it's not necessarily that they want you to have hundreds of reviews, although that would always help because then people go, well, I guess people trust them, right? Because out of 100, probably like 1,000 were served, and the odds of you getting 100 is really significantly low. So at that 10%, that's not usually there. Anyway, but the point being is they connect because they connect with the stories. And when you have testimonials, reviews, and stuff like that, it can have a big impact on your brand's overall trust stability in the market. I don't think that's a word, but like it's an important part of it. You've got
Yeah.
to have brand buy-in. How do you showcase stories in your marketing? Do you have anything on your website? What do you do? How do you story share? Oh, sorry. Bad timing on that.
Sorry about that. So for me, usually when I'm working with clients, case studies are really fabulous. I love being able to, so for one of my clients, I've been writing several case studies lately about how they've made an impact, they've saved money, they've not only driven results, but they're also saving the environment. So for them, there's a lot of really great stuff going on. For me personally, and for Sandbox, it's a little bit harder, only from a concept of, um, although it still is about driving traffic and really showing, how we're doing that. But I truly love case studies. I think they're a great way
Mhm.
to showcase the story of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so we started off with we've got your framework here. You got identify your audience. So that's number one. Age, struggles, dreams, values, what they need, blah, blah, blah. Identify that. Number two is speak to the struggles and desires. So you need to know what do they need. Got to think about it. Third part is showcasing the relatable stories, making it personal, connecting. The fourth one is using the inclusive language and imagery, making people feel welcome into your brand. And this is important because people want to be able to see themselves within your brand. Like they want to see some kind of like communicable attribute to you in that brand that they're connecting with. Especially if the brand you represent has a high ticket offer, this is even more important because that buy-in is going to be the thing that sells it for you versus all your effort and energy. You want to make sure people are connected to your brand so that you can spend more time talking about the problem you solve and less time talking about your price tag on your programs. So when you're using inclusive language and imagery, things that you want to consider is you want to make sure that your visuals are inclusive. So if you're using stock images or anything like that, if you only serve women, but you have men on your website for stock images, that's confusing. So like, don't do that.
And it's really funny. Have someone else look at your site or look at your stuff. I remember when Tina looked at my site and she's like, Heather, it's all men. And I went, it is? Like I didn't even
Yeah.
recognize it. And maybe it wasn't all men, but there were a lot of men on my site and I didn't even
Mhm.
recognize it because I was looking for colors or for the imagery, the way things kind of like looked or something like that. And
Mhm.
I, I hadn't even thought, and I was very careful about diversity, but wasn't even thinking about women. And I don't even know why. Like it was really
Right.
funny. And of course, obviously now, ever since she said that, I am extremely conscious of,
Mhm.
the images I choose. But it took someone from the outside to go, wait a minute, Heather, why are all of your images of men? And I went, huh? I didn't even realize it. So
Yeah.
sometimes, just an outside perspective of from someone else is really
Hmm. It's really helpful. I agree. I think that a company that has done this really well in the last decade is Target.
yeah.
If you walk into Target, they have inclusivity and imagery everywhere. They're using pictures of people who are disabled, who have different body types, not perfect, have stretch marks, natural, big and small, tall and short. Like all of those like old school marketing tactics of women need to look a certain way and everything was very sexualized like in the 90s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s. It was like this pressure to be this ideal anything, no matter, it could be M&Ms that they're selling. They're still like women need to be sexy and beautiful. And I remember like all the campaigns wrapped around that imagery. And that was terrible for me growing up. I shouldn't have seen stuff like that. That's nuts. But as your brand evolves, think about what does it do to your audience? What happens if you're like Nike and you're going to highlight that it doesn't matter what your ability is, what your gender is, what your body type is, what your physical capabilities are? Everyone belongs in the world of sports. Just do it. Wow. Well, now I kind of want to go do something, right? Like it's like this call to action. It's a movement. It's about really bringing people into your brand at a deeper, more connected level. Now, the last part I want to talk about, and Heather, I know you're going to back me up on this. Y'all, stop doing stuff and not giving a call to action.
Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes. Yes.
Y'all put all this effort into your marketing plans and these like big ideas, and then there's no ask.
Yep.
There's no call to action. There's nowhere for me to sign up, learn more, discover more, whatever the thing. Heather, back me up on this. Whew,
No, oh
thank
yeah,
you.
no, you're absolutely right. It's hysterical how many times we forget about the call to action. Yeah, no, I totally back you up. It is so funny. We just forget. Like we put all of this thought into it, and then it's like, oh, well, what do we want them to do? We
Exactly.
need to ask them for the sale. We need to ask them to buy. We need
Yes.
to ask them to check us out. You know,
Hmm.
and oh, by the way, ladies, women, it's okay to ask for the sale. It's okay to
Yes.
say, hey, come learn about me. We
Uh-huh.
are raised where we're not supposed to say, hey, buy this from me or, whatever. It's bullshit. So put your call to action and have people say, come buy your product. So yeah.
Yeah,
No, no,
absolutely.
no. Come buy your solution. Let's
Come
not
buy
say,
your salute. That's really good. Yeah. Because again, going back up to the top of that framework, like you're not selling the lotion, you're selling the skin not hurting because you use the lotion. So here's your solution. You're not selling real estate, you're selling someone's next decade plus of their lives. You're selling people's experiences and connecting your brand to those experiences cannot happen if you cannot identify your core messaging. You're just going to miss the mark over and over and over again. And so, identifying who your ideal customer avatar is, what pain points do they have, and how are you that solution? What are your authority statements? Where are your relatable stories, your testimonials, those pieces? And then bringing it all together with going, I want to invite you into this solution. Like, I think a lot of times there's a hesitation because people will say things like, I'm not a salesperson. I hear that a lot. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not either. I don't consider myself a salesperson at all. I have always had some of the highest sales ever in all of the roles I've held that have been sales based. But that's not because I'm a salesperson. It's because I'm a marketer. It's because I can communicate, because I don't push people into things. I give them the opportunity to solve their problem. And if it's right for them, they'll say yes. And if it's not, farewell, next, please. Right? Like, I think sometimes we also get really stuck on like, I got to close, I got to close, I got to close. When a door closes for you, that's just opening a door for something new.
uh,
So just move on, let it go.
I can't remember who it's one of the spokespeople that Tina gets for the CEO school. And one of the I think the best things that I remember learning was don't chase the sale. And
Yes.
it felt very right, meaning I've
Hmm.
never understood the concept of following up 12 zillion times. If they don't want you, they don't want you. And,
Yeah.
and so don't force it. Work
Right.
on the ones that
Absolutely.
do want you. Put the effort into the ones that are your right avatar, are the right person.
Hmm.
It makes no sense to go after someone with so much energy who's in the long run going to cost you more because they're the wrong
Hmm.
person for you. And it's
Right. Yeah.
okay that you don't make that sale because you'll make the right one. And I think that's
Yeah.
another thing. Yeah, we don't want to ask for the sale, but we also don't want to miss out on a sale. But sometimes
Right.
missing out on a sale is a hell of a lot better in the long run than uh, yeah, it just the wrong
Yep.
client is the wrong client, and they cost you more stress, they cost you money, they cost you anxiety.
Hmm.
It is not worth it. Stick with
It's not.
customers who are your right avatar.
Right. People you connect with, trust your intuition. I cannot say that more. Trust your gut. I think that a lot of times we gaslight ourselves into thinking that what we're feeling is not really like backed by anything because we can't necessarily identify why we feel that way. But like if you feel like the person you're about to go into contract with isn't a good fit for your business, trust it.
Yeah.
Because Heather's not joking. I can't tell you how many times I should have fired people before I hired them on, like clients, because they literally wiped out my profit margin. They stretched the projects out too long. They weren't doing their part. They weren't ready for it. And every time I'd be like, oh, I want to make sure I don't lose a sale. And I'm like, that was not worth it. At the end, every time, that was not worth it, crazy. That was not worth how stressed I've been for 6 months or however long that went. And so trusting your gut, trusting your intuition, and getting very, very, very clear about who your audience is and what solution you provide. And that is going to be very impactful for humanizing your marketing on a whole nother level. Also, just real quick, because we're about to sign off, use ChatGPT to help you.
Yeah.
If you have reviews, upload them into ChatGPT and say, outline my perfect customer avatar. If you have any kind of testimonials, or if you have websites and nothing and you just whatever, just give it whatever you can, whatever messaging you have, and ask it to start helping you develop who this character is that you're going after. So you stop spending your time, energy, effort, and money in the wrong places. All right, that's all for today. We are so grateful for everyone who hopped on and watched us live. If you're watching the replay, don't forget the question that we want to know from you. And let me find it really quickly because I have it written down. Is we want to know,
How you make
where's
people
my
feel.
question? Oh, yeah. What's one way your brand makes people feel seen? I want to know that. So go ahead and drop that in the comments. Heather, thank you so much for hopping on with me today. I hope you continue to get better, and we'll see everyone next week. Okay.
Bye, guys. Have fun.
Bye.